What's good? I'm back from Yosemite and back for the foreseeable future as far as trips out of town, so I should be back full time making these videos on Tuesdays. So, this looks like it'll be a short one because I think looks like this assignment had a lot of casualties, maybe. Start with this, just to go back to what I said last time, I need more resolution, more image size than this to really make comments on the model. This is so blurry and low res that there's not much I can say. And in addition, like the lack of FBX and textures and all your stuff, not much I can say about this. So if you're able to put those up like in next week or something, I can definitely give feedback. But this just isn't really enough for me to say, except maybe it looked like there was some UV stretching issues on it around the top piece. Not sure, but yeah, that's what I got for this one. But to go back, okay, the coffee maker, substance painter. Yeah, I talked to you in chat a little bit. I wish I had a solution. I think if your computer isn't like super powerful, Substance is really a demanding program, and it can really fuck up your computer if it's not if it's not up to spec, which not a lot that can be done about that. I don't know how it runs on the school computers or whatever. But yeah, unfortunately that's not, I wish I had an easy solution. But it looks like you're getting materials done anyway, so excellent. Let me see. Yeah, if you updated the program and it got worse, maybe try updating your graphics drivers for your computer. That might help. Other than that, not really sure. But yeah, like Fuchs said, it could be a memory issue. I don't know how much memory your computer has, but if it's running out or running out of hard disk space or stuff like that, then that can definitely cause issues. But let's take a look at it. It's looking pretty nice. I see you've resolved the packed maps thing on here, which is excellent. It looks like it's missing the normal map. I'm not sure if that's an oversight or if it doesn't have one, but I feel like the Overwatch style relies on normal maps a lot for those soft cornered edges. So it's something that I know you have bevels on your model. Let me see. I got it open here. But they're just so, like, the bevels on here are so thin and hard, compared to the sort of pillowy Overwatch style in a lot of places that, I think you really want to have a normal map that's getting those looking really soft and friendly, But going back here, the other thing that I was going to say, oh yeah, okay, so one thing, and I'm going to check the other ones this way too, but one of the requirements for this game prop is that it has to be to correct scale, and hopefully you guys know that units in Maya are equivalent to centimeters in Unreal, so you want to put in, I have this guy I made that's about 2 meters, which is a little tall for a person, but roughly human sized, and you can see that this is not like the correct size for a coffee maker compared to a human being. So that's something you want to fix before you turn in your final asset, because it's an important requirement for the model. So that's one thing to check. Just if you don't have a guy like this, one thing you can do is just make a cube, and I have it set to be 20 by 20 by 200, so 2 meters tall. Again, a little taller than a normal person, but it can still be a start. Damn it. There we go. So you can just throw something like that in there. Or you can figure out, what's an average human height and actually adjust it to be correct. And then you can say, all right, well, that's a human size, and, adjust to that. So that's the one thing I'll say about scale. As far as the model, I think it's generally looking pretty good. The normal map thing I would definitely look into. I don't know for sure because I haven't spent a ton of time looking at Overwatch stuff. I think you've done a good job of making some of these bigger. I would look for opportunities to wonk it up a little bit, like just don't have it all be perfectly straight and even, like do this, kink these out a little bit, maybe do some soft soft selection, and I don't know, just look for ways to make it funkier. Like this could be not straight up and down. The coffee cup could be not perfectly aligned with the dispenser, stuff like that. You could even go and take some of these and just wonk them slightly. This is something we do in Concrete Genie a lot, and just make things not quite perfect, especially for a cartoon styled thing. But even in realism, like a lot of objects are not fabricated very well. They're not perfect, and you can exaggerate that a little bit without killing the realism. So I don't do all this, as I always say, like don't do exactly this stuff, but just look for opportunities to add a little bit of life and naturalness to it without like messing it up. You know what I mean? But like I feel like the geometry is solid. Overall, this is a nice piece. I feel like going back to the materials, I don't love the materials right now. I think it all looks sort of equally shiny, and maybe that's the roughness map being a little bit too, like, not enough variation in the roughness. It just feels a little bit like everything's kind of plastic, And I hope, presumably you're using like metalness for the chrome parts, because that seems like what you would want to do for something like this. You can reference the chrome in here and see how that's looking. But really, in a PBR thing like Unreal, all that is just low roughness, metalness of one, and that'll get you there. And the reflections are just coming from the environment for the most part. So I think that's doable. I feel like the color, it just doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't look like a color I would see in Overwatch. I would maybe make it a little bit lighter. If you look around Overwatch, a lot of the base color maps are pretty light in color, and then they get the value from the lighting in the world. I think that might help. And I don't know, it's kind of to me anyway, this is sort of personal preference. It's kind of a weird shade of blue. I would maybe go back to the Route 66 map or whatever and find like objects in Overwatch, not even that map, but like these vases maybe, and try to like steal a shade of blue from Overwatch maybe. I'm not sure. But like overall, I think the modeling is strong, and it's, this is polished stuff for the most part. So I think you're in good shape here. Moving on to the helmet. Let me delete this guy and see if I have the helmet model. Yes. All right. And then let me throw that scale guy in again, if I can find him. Aha, yes. So this is also not to scale. So make sure you do that before you turn in the final model on Friday. Because obviously that's very important for a game asset. If you import an asset into Unreal that's the wrong scale, you've probably discovered that you can like manually scale it up and down. But that's not a good solution, because if somebody else needs to use that model on your team, then they're going to have to scale it up too, and they're going to have to check with you and ask what did you scale the model up by, and you'll say oh, it was 16.438, and then they'll have to do that every time they use the model or write it down somewhere, and it's all a disaster. So make sure you have it scaled to the correct scale. Beyond that, I'm not sure why it's all hard edged right now. Without having the textures, I don't know if that's how you baked it out, but you definitely would not want to bake your normals with a all hard edged model. That would give you some problems, presumably. But beyond that, I mean, the geo looks very nice. I think it's looking like a very solid retopo. So excellent work there. And going back here, I think your materials are looking really nice too. It's quite good. This is a really good piece. I'm very happy with how this turned out. The one thing I would say is if you were theoretically, maybe you have already done this, but if you have this as an Assassin's Creed asset, right? I would assume that it wouldn't look like an ancient helmet that's been dredged out of a shipwreck or something, right? If you're wearing it in a Assassin's Creed Odyssey and in ancient times, it would probably be cleaner and, less oxidized and less damaged. And I don't think you should go back and redo it now because I think it's a good asset the way it is. But that would be something to consider is like, what can I bring to it? Also shows your creativity for a portfolio piece. Is like, how can I make this a, how can I interpret this piece that I've chosen and figure out, well, what would this have looked like in the time that it was actually worn? And, maybe after this assignment, you could go and do a version of it that's like new and clean and set at the same time as the helmet was made. But that's just an idea. I think it looks good. What was your note? Moving the low poly, the vertices. Yeah, that's pretty common. So I wouldn't do that in ZBrush if I go to do that. And maybe, I don't know how you retopologized it. Maybe it was done in Maya with Quad Draw. If you're gonna like retopo in Maya, which is what I usually do, I mean, you can move the verts in Maya. That's no problem. If you have to turn off, make live or whatever, and turn off Quad Draw before you can do that. But once you've got the geo, it's perfectly fine to start going in and adjusting it. That's a pretty normal procedure, I think, for retopology. So yeah, I think you're doing the right thing. And if it's easier for you to do that in ZBrush, whatever works. I think, do what works for you fastest and easiest. Yeah, I don't have much more to say. I think it's a good asset. It's looking really nice. Yeah, I would maybe for your final render, I was gonna say bring in some color, but it looks like you're doing that here. So yeah, this is looking good. I'm not sure if this is Marmoset. Presumably it is actually, because I saw you're working with that. So if this is a Marmoset render, that's looking really nice. If it's not, do a Marmoset render and maybe have one with a wireframe on it so that people can see that it's a game res asset because it looks really nice. But yeah, really nice work. And then you were asking, Marmoset Toolbag has something like offset the cage or painting the cage. Is that the same job? I'm not sure. I haven't ever baked in Marmoset yet. So I know they have some interesting additional tools that Substance Painter doesn't have for its baker, but I've never tried them, so I can't really speak to what they do. But I think what you're doing is fine as far as it goes. So yeah, nice work. These are called Arnold, so they're not Marmoset. I did not notice that. But yeah, I would say for your final render, you definitely, if you're doing a game asset, it needs to be rendered in a real-time engine, not in a Arnold or whatever. That's definitely something that people will want to see in a portfolio. But the renders are good regardless, and it's a really nice piece. So good work. Moving on to this one, the diving helmet. Yes, okay, so it's looking good. There's a few things I want to talk about. Let me clear out this space again. I'll just throw in the guy one more time and helmet. Whoop. That's fine. All right. That's closer in scale. In fact, actually, maybe that is correct scale. I would assume these types of helmets are pretty big. So I talked about this last week, and it doesn't look like you've really addressed it, which is disappointing. But this looks like and Bob called this out too when we were looking at these pieces. This looks like your high poly mesh before you've smoothed it. Because when I smooth it, then it looks excellent. But when it's unsmoothed, you have not enough edges here, especially not here. This looks very low. This is really not like, good enough for a game asset. Or here, these curves here are really low. This one, all that stuff. Like your low poly needs to be custom made for your low poly. It can't be just your high poly unsmoothed. This is really important for game assets. The process of retopology is like a whole extra step that you have to do, and it looks like you sort of skipped it here. And like your amount of detail here and stuff is really good, and just your observation of all these pieces and getting those in and working, I think is excellent. But but you have to do the retopology step. You have to go in and actually create a low res asset that looks good. And it looks like that hasn't really happened here. So that's really my big comment on this one. You know, same goes for back here. Like, think about the silhouette that it's going to have. You know, you don't want to have these big jagged edges on your piece. And also, like, this right now has 20,000 tries, which is way over. I think I forget the limit was like 2,000 or something for this assignment. I don't know if Tom waived that this time, but like, that's definitely really high for what I'm seeing here. I don't think you need that many triangles. And I think a lot of that's coming from these edge loops, you know, talking about your low poly needing to be, you know, built to be a low poly. It wouldn't need all these little bevels. So you're actually spending a lot of edge loops on things that you don't need for a low poly. So yeah, I would say, I don't know if there's time for the assignment, but I would definitely expect to see like a correct retopology for something like this. That being said, I think your materials are looking really good. It looks like they're displaying correctly. I'm not sure, without having the textures here, it looks like this piece here has lower pixel density or something, because it doesn't look like it has the detail that the rest of it does. Let me see if I can throw on the heat map. I don't know, that looks okay, what I can tell. Let me try scaling it though and see if that makes a difference. All right, yeah, coming up now we see this is, okay, so you want your texel density across the UVs to be pretty even. It looks like maybe that's not happening here. In fact, yeah, that's what I thought. This area here is way, way, way low compared to the rest of it. Looks like, in fact, this isn't even UV'd correctly, which is real bad. So I don't know, this looks like an oversight because the rest of it is UV'd relatively well. Maybe you just missed the spot, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, make sure that's all working before you do your materials, because otherwise it's a pain to sort of go back and redo them. Definitely try to get your texel density more even than this. I know in some big spots, like a big warped curved spot like this piece, like you're gonna have some inevitable warping, which is okay, but like definitely stuff like these pieces, they don't need to be the wrong texel density. Definitely the front of the visor doesn't have to be like that. So yeah, try to get everything even and looking the same color as much as you can. I think the bottom being smaller is fine because that's less important, but for the rest of it, try to keep it even. So yeah, I think like you started with a good block out mesh and did a really good job with detail, and just sort of skipped steps or rushed through UVing and retopology. And I think it's sort of hurt the final product. So hopefully this is like a good opportunity to go back and try to do that more correctly. Because I remember that was an issue with the Villager too, where, you know, it was looking good and then you didn't really resolve the geometry at the end. And I think that's really important. So I hope to see a finished version of this. Because like what's here is nice, but it's just not quite right. You know, it's skipped steps and it's suffering from that. As far as the materials, I feel like they're good as far as the reference, the photo reference, but I'm not seeing the BioShock influence from your style reference. Especially like looking at this piece, it's very stylized. It's cut out a lot of the high frequency detail that you'd see on like a realistic prop. Not sure if this is from maybe this is from BioShock Infinite, which I think had a sort of a different art style than the original BioShock. So maybe that's what's going on here, but you want to make sure there's consistency. And, you know, I know there's diving suit guys in BioShock, so you'd want to like be looking at those with your reference. Like this is good as like setting the mood and context for your piece, but you really want to have, you know, if you're going to make a diving helmet, you want to see exactly what those diving helmets that are already in the game look like, so that you can, you know, put yours next to them and say, all right, this fits in this world. Because I think it just looks sort of like a photorealistic diving helmet right now. and I'm not sure, like, without looking at the Big Daddy character, what I would do differently. But I think that's the benefit of having that reference there. So, yeah, I think it's there's a lot good here. There's just some like really big missed steps that are hurting it a lot, I think. So good, but try to do the whole process next time for sure. And I think that's everybody for today. Yeah. So please, everybody, make sure everything's scaled correctly and, correct poly count, all that stuff for the end of the week. I know this has been probably a rough assignment. The point of it is sort of to create an assignment when I did this last year, where sort of you couldn't just there were no buffer weeks. You have to finish the step you're doing each week and move on to the next one, because otherwise it's going to snowball and you're not going to be able to stay on top of the assignment. So it looks like, it took some people out for sure, but that's also the benefit of it being only 4 weeks, so you can go back and do another one if you want or whatever. So hopefully this has been a helpful assignment. I would love to hear questions or comments on how this went overall from everybody. Even if you don't have work on here, just hit me up in chat or leave a note on Friday. I would love to hear comments on how this went, how you did with it. If there's anything that was really confusing. It looked like a lot of people didn't get the materials hooking up thing in Unreal correctly, so I need to go back and check my video and see if that was not explained or whatever. But yeah, let me know how this went. And thanks for turning stuff in, and can't wait to see it on Friday. See you guys.